Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode.
Hello. We are here.
Yeah.
I think so.
Where else would we be?
I don't know. Today we thought we would do something kind of different. Maybe we'll do this like here and there and every so often. We always seem to have like some questions of like, what are you reading or what are you watching or those kind of things. And so we just thought we would do a little thing on like some of our favorite things right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we call it that?
Yeah. Our favorites.
Yeah, exactly. Some of our favorite things that we are engaging with. I don't know. Anyway, so so one of the ones, as I probably have mentioned before,
well, should we say how we're breaking them down? Yes,
we're going to break them down into, I think I got this right.
We'll see.
Your favorite book, your favorite show.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah. Podcast, favorite podcast. I'm going to be honest, on some of these I have two because I can't.
That's okay. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a couple things that we'll talk a little bit about. Like, it doesn't have to just be one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's okay.
And some of these are literally like, a lot of people know I listen to a lot of podcasts, and so I feel like this is always a conversation we're having. It's like, what podcast are you listening to? And then Pat can vouch for the fact that I have too many podcasts on my
and I also
library.
think that like, from I'm gonna call you out.
What?
In almost every conversation we have with somebody right now, it's like, oh, like I heard this thing on this podcast, and da 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 da. Oh, I heard this thing. Oh yeah, I heard that on that podcast, and da 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 da.
Yeah.
So you can like consume podcasts like crazy.
I do.
Like,
I really do like them.
And you just like the format.
Yeah.
Like that's just a format that you absolutely really love. So.
Yeah, definitely.
There's nothing wrong with it.
No.
It's just
thanks.
You listen to it.
Well, let's start at books because I also consume a lot of books and I really do like reading. And so let's start at books. What is a favorite book that you have recently read that you really liked?
Okay, so like we've talked in the past about this, I don't read as much as Maya does. I enjoy reading when I find the right book that I enjoy. And so one of the things that I'm a big Ernest Cline fan. I absolutely loved Ready Player One. I loved that book. Ready Player Two was good. I didn't like it as much as Ready Player One. But I just read one of his other books called Armada. And I really enjoyed it. It took me a lot longer to read than Zane did because Zane reads at like lightning speed and I don't understand how he does it.
He does. He reads faster than me.
But I really enjoyed the story. Like it has a lot of the same, it's a sci-fi book. It's got a lot of very similar things of bringing in the 80s nostalgia stuff for me as well, and just all that kind of stuff that Ready Player One had. And so I think there's something in the connection with Ernest Cline and how he writes, and the things that he's inspired by are similar things that I get excited about and they're inspired by. So I really love the book. If you liked Ready Player One, I definitely would recommend
the book, not the movie, right? Because we all weren't that big.
I don't mind the movie.
The book was much better.
Again, the book is way much better. I mean, I think that's a pretty typical narrative of most
the book always
books
seems to
versus
be better.
movies. Is I don't know. I can't think of offhand. I would say a movie was better than the book. For the most part. And so for sure. Like the book was Ready Player One was amazing, and if you really enjoyed that book, I think you would really enjoy Armada. It's just a really fun read. And especially if you are really into sci-fi and adventure stuff, it's really, really cool. So that's one thing that I really have enjoyed lately.
Yeah, I wanted to have a book that I could be like, oh, I found this book that no one's talking about. But unfortunately, I'm going to say a book that if you go, at least here in the UK, for a while, if you went to any bookstore, it was like one of the first ones that was either in the window of the bookstore or very upfront and stuff like that. And that is Hamnet. And so it is about Shakespeare's son. And then,
oh yeah, I remember you reading
yeah,
it.
I devoured it. And some people, I can't remember the other book that was written by this author that I have not read. Did not like that book, but I really did like this book. And yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, Pat can vouch for the fact that I love Shakespeare and any kind of story, even though this is, a fiction story loosely based on truth. And that kind of thing. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's kind of then shows you like the idea of like how Hamlet came to be, and that, or the thinking of maybe how it came to be. So yeah, that was one that I really liked.
Well, and again, it's like a period piece.
I do
kind
like
of
anything.
Historical fiction
Is my thing
things
too.
that are based from historical fact, like you just like love that.
Yes,
stuff.
because then the reason why I like it is then I like actually going and then finding out like, okay, how much of this, and sometimes the authors are great in including that in the back, in the back of the book once you've finished, of like, here's where I gathered my information and that kind of thing. And so yeah, that was one, and then
of course you have more than one.
I have three, but I'm only going to say two. So we often also get asked of like books that we read with our kids.
Oh yeah, that's
and so one that I've been reading with Jude right now, and Zane had read it a long time ago, and it's called Refugee. And I just feel like it could not be more of a timely book to read right now. And it follows three kids, that one from World War II, a child from Cuba. So you go from like 1930s to 40s to the 90s to 2015, and 2015 then is somebody from a child from Syria. So you've got Jewish child from I think they are coming from Germany. Are they coming from Germany? I can't remember. Yeah, I think they are coming from Germany. And then Cuba, somebody fleeing from Cuba, and then somebody a family fleeing from Syria. I will say, like, I will put a warning on it. Like, I would not read it to Veda yet, because it's sure. So far it's sad, and I have a feel. I remember, and I think Zane would be fine with us saying this. Like when Zane read
he was pretty emotional.
He was very emotional about it, and had tears, and wanted to do a lot of research about how he could help refugee children and stuff like that. And so I do like it because it really does show what it is truly like for so many families that are fleeing from areas for different reasons and stuff like that. And so we're in the middle of it with Jude. He's handling it well. At first he said he didn't want to read it because he remembered how emotional Zane was with it. And Zane did say it's a really hard read. But then I said, why don't we read it together? And so I do still read out loud to Jude, and sometimes Zane listens in too. But I would really recommend it. Jude's 10, almost 11. And so depending on your child, I would say that would be a good, an okay age, but you would want to gauge like where they are emotionally and stuff like that. And that kind of thing. Maybe waiting a little bit longer would be okay. But for Jude, it felt like it was a good time to start that book. And so, and it's already opened up. Like, I mean, it is a book that was one of those cliffhangers that every chapter ends on. You're like, oh, and Jude's like, no, wait, read more.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be a book that I would recommend reading.
Yeah, I mean, that's so much fun when we do something like that. And actually, during Christmas, we got a book that we were going to read together as a family. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, not during Christmas. We're going to read it next week.
Yeah, actually before. Sorry. Yeah. But anyways, so I think your
kids are never too old to be read out loud.
I think still, reading out loud to your kids, no matter what age they are, is always fun still. So
yeah. So that would be, I'm trying to think what books we've been reading with Veda. I'd have to have more of a think about that. Maybe the next time we do this, I'll think.
Anything with a cat.
Well, I know. But Veda does love reading all the books that are about like different stories about women in history and things like that. She does really like that stuff. And in fact, she just added like there's a bunch of them, like women in science books. She really loves science that she wants to get and stuff. So let's move on to shows.
I thought you had 3 books.
Well, I mean, I'll mention the third book. I won't go into too much detail about it, but you guys have heard me talk on here before about the book Essentialism. So the same author put out a second book called Effortless. Similar on some of the topics, and they do like go together in some ways. But again, it's very much the same idea as Essentialism, but just like how do we do things in our lives and that feel quote unquote effortless, because we have made our lives, essential and that kind of thing, and just really walks you through that. So I really enjoyed it. It was a quick read. I didn't love it as much as Essentialism, but it will be one that I have kept on, will keep and stuff like that.
I wonder if it had a similar tone as Essentialism. That's maybe why you didn't enjoy it as much, because you kind of already expected some of that.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a bad book. I would still really recommend. I would recommend Essentialism first, and then you could read this one too.
That makes sense.
But yeah, so that was my third kind of like, because I do read those type of books too.
Yes, you do.
So,
yeah.
All right, show. I think we both are going to have at least one show that is our favorite.
Yeah. Do we want to wait till the end for that one?
Or are you going to do, or you want to do?
Well, do you have another one?
I do have another one.
Okay, go ahead.
And I don't know what you've put down as your favorite, so I don't know if this will be, maybe not, but
they will not be the same.
Okay.
So it's okay.
My other one besides the one that we will both have as our favorite is The Morning Show on Apple TV.
Yeah. I enjoy this show as well.
Yeah, and so I actually when we were coming, we had our trip to the States, and I'm way behind on this. I know it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
And we didn't actually realize we had a free trial to Apple TV, so that's part of it. But we were stuck on a plane for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
When we were coming back from the States, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch. They had 2 episodes of The Morning Show, the first 2 episodes, and I thought, okay, I'll watch it. I've avoided it a little bit because it has felt like, oh, this is a really hard topic. It's very follows the Me Too movement, and it also follows and people in the UK have no clue who this person is, so it's funny in the States, like Matt Lauer and everything that happened with that in Good Morning America. Yeah,
I think that's right.
I've forgotten the show name, because we haven't watched stuff like that in a while.
That's funny.
And so it's very much based off of that. Again, it's funny when we say that here and people are like, who?
Yeah.
I don't know who that is. And so, but it follows that. It is a hard watch, so I will put it on that. It deals with a lot of, hard topics. At the same time, it's really eye-opening. As far as like how there can be like the major ways that people are sexually harassing people, and even going further than that to the minor things that are said in a workplace, and having, past experience in a workplace that was heavily male driven and stuff like that. I didn't experience the extreme ends of those things, but experienced the other end of things, of just comments made and things like that people are like, oh, haha, and laugh it off. And it's like,
actually, no,
that's not okay.
That's not okay.
So, I mean, Zane has not watched, I'm glad he didn't watch the last episode with us, but
he's starting to dip into
that. He has watched a couple of them with us, and one, I mean, I think at one point he was like, Mom, I get it, stop. Like, I would stop it, and I was like, you understand why that's not okay for a male to say that to another female, or for other people to laugh and things like that, and how horrible that is. And he was like, yes, I get it. But so it's actually been really good. Again, that's Zane's maturity level, so we do let him watch some of those type of shows with us that are a little bit different. But it deals with a lot of stuff, and so it deals with fame and how that affects families and just all kinds of stuff. So that is a show that we are not even, I mean, we're still in the first season.
Yeah, we're still in the first
season. We don't watch TV that often, so when we do sit down, it's like, oh, so we have been watching that. And again, it's a hard show to watch, but I also have really appreciated how they have done it, and everything like that. What's yours? Please don't say what I think you're going to say.
No.
What are you going to say?
So one of my favorites right now, and it just had its season finale, is Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that.
And
I did try to watch the show with you.
You did try. You gave it a go, but it was a little too much for you. But it's Only Murders in the Building, and it's with Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. And for me, it's more about the mystery and the whodunit, and you're trying to unravel the mystery as they're doing it, as well as the side narrative is they've created this podcast while they're trying to figure out this murder in the building that they live in New York City. And it's just so much fun. It's just a blast to watch.
You've laughed a lot while you're watching it. It's like a dark comedy, would you call it?
Yeah, it's like kind of a darker comedy, but I know the reason why you struggled with it.
Well, I mean, I struggle. I think we may have mentioned this in the past, but like I struggle with any kind of movie or TV show that has anything to do with like murder or is a little bit more on like maybe like the darker side of things and stuff. Like I when I was 13, I had a good friend that was actually murdered brutally, and know too much information about it because it was in the news so much and things like that. And so that kind of stuff gives me nightmares. So I did watch like 2 or 3 episodes, and then there was a scene that for some reason it was kind of okay, and then there was a scene that then that night I didn't sleep at all, and I had nightmares for 2 nights in a row. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't watch it anymore.
Yeah. Like, so I mean, it's definitely there's definitely obviously right. It's dealing with. They're trying to solve a mystery of
to be
somebody
fair,
being murdered.
It's not like that gruesome. Well,
no,
maybe
it's not. It's not
that
gruesome.
Kind of thing, but it's just not, mentally for me, I couldn't.
Yeah,
do it.
It's not. It's not like something that that there's blood all over the place and things like that. It's more about like trying to uncover a mystery between a bunch of different people that live in this one building, and there's all these different things about. Again, you live next to someone, your neighbor that you might say hi to in the hallway or in the elevator or whatever, but then. There's this thing about them that you'd have no clue about and things like that. So it's about really, you're uncovering these really fun, unique stories that are behind all these different people that live in this building. And then how are they all intertwined? And obviously with Steve Martin and Martin Short, like comedy is just a thread through everything. And so there's some really funny moments and different things. And there's also some other amazing actors. There's I'm not giving anything away, but there's some really fun moments where
when you did say the one person who joined, I was like, oh, he's one of my
Sting
favorites.
is in the show,
and Nathan Lang, right?
And Nathan Lang is in the show.
Nathan Lang, I love him.
So yeah, it's a blast. It's a really fun watch. They're quick little like 25-minute episodes on if you have Disney Plus. It's like a Stars original.
Yeah, it's not on like the kids section.
Yeah, it's not in the kids section, but yeah. So it's a favorite of mine. I kind of wish the season wasn't over. They definitely, I don't think it's a spoiler, but there's a cliffhanger at the end of it.
So that's not a spoiler. Randomly though, like to cross over, like Martin Short is in a lot of stuff. Like he is in that, and then he's in the morning show as well. Like we're like, why all of a sudden is he all over? I mean, it's really cool to see somebody at that age. Like just
we absolutely love him. So it was awesome to see him in some of those shows. So.
Yeah. So then the show we both love,
yes,
which also just had its season finale,
which everyone
also
talks
left
about.
on a cliffhanger, and we're not going to do any spoilers. Don't worry on any of these things, but is Ted Lasso.
Yep.
We were a little bit behind on the Ted Lasso bandwagon because we didn't have Apple TV. And then I realized I had gotten a new phone and we got it free for a year. And I was like, well, let's at least watch this show that everyone's talking about.
Right.
Because at first I was like, oh, I don't know.
I gave it a go first.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think you should watch this.
Yeah. And it is, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it is just... It's so good. It is. Actually, I was listening to a podcast. What's the guy's name that plays Roy Kent?
I think it's Brett Goldstein or something like that.
And he was talking about how like he can't stand when he's watching a drama and there's no humor in it whatsoever because that's not real life. Like even as hard things happen to us in life, there's also funny things that are happening alongside it. And I
love that.
And so I was like, that's exactly what I think about this show is that the way they have written it, like I have laughed so much on the show and watching it, but also have cried my eyes out too. Like there were several of them in a row that I was like, oh my goodness. Like I wasn't expecting this show to suddenly like, it doesn't do that right away, but like as you get more into the characters and stuff that it was like, whoa. And you really get invested in the characters. And he was talking because he's one of the writers about the fact that like, as they're writing and stuff like that, they create this space of vulnerability as they're writing, and they are constantly referencing like Esther Perel and Brene Brown and stuff like that. And then they also bring those quotes that sometimes like, Ted Lasso will say something. And they said something I heard on a podcast that they,
really? You heard it on the podcast?
I know, here I've said that so many times, darn it. But that they they get these quotes and stuff, but they do let those people know they're using the quote. And I thought that was brilliant. But yeah, I mean, why do you like the show?
I think
there's also the American UK thing too.
Yeah, I think the American UK thing for us, right? We've moved to the UK as Americans, and the things that Ted goes through is what we went through. Like, there's so many things that we can relate to. in so many ways and they do it in such a real way, that, and not, they don't poke fun at it because, but there is a sense of humor in it, and there's also a sense of realness and vulnerability with, the UK versus US stuff, but also like I just love the real vulnerability of the show. Again, like what you just said, Maya, like when they go into it and them writing about like,
they deal with some hard
drama.
Stuff. Yeah.
There's a drama should have comedy in it. A comedy should have drama in it. Like that is life, and I think that's what this show's, at least for me, is like really shown. Like it does feel like real life. Like I feel like I could run into Ted, on the common, just walking down the street here. Like, he just feels so real because you see the funny side of him. You see the darker side of him, the emotional side of him. Like, and we're starting to see that with all the characters because they're trying to explore some of the other characters even more. So, dare I say it's probably my favorite show ever.
I will say this, and Pat will vouch for this too. I don't rewatch TV shows. Yeah. Like even things like Friends or stuff like that. Like I'm like, oh yeah, that episode, but like I can't sit and watch it. It could be on the background maybe. But like Ted Lasso, I have rewatched, or that is another show we do let Zane watch with us, and I'm like, oh, you have to see this episode because I want to talk about it with you, kind of things. And so it is something to rewatch. And I do think, if you are an expat at all, especially if you're an expat that has from the United States to the UK, and whether you've lived here for however long you've lived here, there are so many jokes that we have said a couple times. Like, I wonder if someone in the US actually gets that joke. Like there was a joke about Waitrose. It's not giving anything away. And like, ooh,
that's a grocery store here.
Who are you, the queen shopping there? And like, that's funny because that's the kind of jokes people make here with it. But then there's been jokes on the other side of things that are very American that even then they joke, and like Ted will often say, oh, no one gets that? No one gets that, do they? And like, we're laughing, so it's a great show for us because it's like we get both. We see both, yeah. We get the jokes, the UK jokes, the British jokes, and we get the American jokes. And so, yeah, it's kind of a fun thing to watch. But yeah, I mean, it's a good one if you need to laugh and you also want heartfelt and like make you think and make you cry and make you really think through things. Mm-hmm. It's a great show.
Yeah, I mean, we can't recommend the show enough. Like, if you haven't seen it, like,
give it a go. Give it a go. Like, don't just watch the first episode. Watch like 4 or 5 of them,
and they go fast. They are like 20, 25-minute episodes, so they're not like super long. And you'll fly through the first season once you get 3 or 4 episodes in, you're hooked.
Yeah, and again, we have said to a couple people, you should watch this so you know what it's like to live here, because there are so many things. Oh gosh, and I don't again want to give it away, but there's so many quotes or things that he deals with of things of we're like, yes, that's what it's like. So it's just really brilliant. So then moving on to podcasts, since I've mentioned podcasts like 400 times.
So do I have to cap you at how many podcasts you get to share about? Or...
No, I literally only wrote down 2.
Okay.
I mean, I could keep going on and on. That could be a whole podcast episode of ours in itself, but I won't do that.
Sure.
So you go first because...
Yeah. So I'm just going to share one that I just absolutely love every week when a new one comes up. Actually, I think they might do 2 a week, but they do it in a different way. But I absolutely love Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend.
Oh, I've been wanting to listen to that one.
And I love, because he's stepping away from doing late night TV, and but this format for him, like he even talks about it on the podcast of how, he just absolutely loves it because he actually can, on his show, he gets like 10 to 15 minutes or not even probably 15 minutes with people. But when they come on the show, it's usually they're like, trying to, do press about a movie or a show or whatever. They're talking about something that they're doing. And so he's interviewing them about that kind of stuff. But on the podcast, he brings in celebrities. On one part of the podcast, they bring in celebrities and they just kind of talk about life and different things like that. And so it's just so much fun. I mean, there have been so many times where I like find myself laughing out loud, and a lot of times I listen to it when I'm walking to like pick up the kids or whatever in my headphones, and I'm like literally like, oh my gosh, like, do people think I'm crazy? Because I'm literally
do that all the time here.
laughing out loud as I'm walking. And so it's just so funny. But then the other part of their podcast too is they have like it sounds so ridiculous, but like normal people call in, like they'll
non-celebrities,
muggles, I guess, or whatever you want to call us. But they'll like propose a question to Conan. But he like interviews them and just kind of gets to know them and all that kind of stuff. And he treats them just the same way as the celebrities. And it's just so much fun to listen to. And so, yeah, I love when I see there's a new episode of that comes up on my phone. So, yeah.
Yeah. There is a podcast that we have been listening to together.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And it is called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill.
Yes. I feel like this is like we could do a whole podcast on this one.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot in there, isn't there? And for those of you who aren't familiar, especially, people in the UK, or you're not, haven't come from like the kind of like church Christian world, basically it follows exactly what it says, the rise and fall of Mars Hill, which was this like mega church in the United States, who had this very certain dynamic leader, and then it follows like how that built to be this huge place, and then follows and interviews people that were part of that, and then also like how they point it down, and it's not giving anything away, but there's no spoilers really, because it's something that you can look up and find everything on it.
It's true.
But they really talk about the fact that like this person's character, who was the leader, was not developed enough for what came, and for how quickly things grew and fame that came and stuff like that. But it also deals a lot with how he handled women and men, and bullied and
well, just like the power of
leadership. Power of it. And I think the reason why I like it actually is really, it can be, and they do good. They always at the beginning give warnings if there's any kind of like things
certain
that might be triggering
or
topics.
Yeah.
They do really good in that. Because again, there are some that deal again with like slight sexual harassment, that kind of thing, sexual harassment and those kind of things.
Just abuse in general.
Yeah, and abuse in general and that kind of stuff. But I think the reason why we avoided it for a little while, but now that we have listened to it, I think it's so important. And I don't even think you need to be of the Christian faith to listen to it and it be an important listen, because it's so important of how somebody can be put in a position and things start off and they seem okay. But if, in any kind of company or public sphere, or, going viral and things blow up, it can be put into any of those contexts. And I'm sure if you're not, maybe you don't like have the same faith that we do or something like that, you might listen to be like, oh, well, that's a Christian thing. And I don't view it that way. As I view it as like, this can happen anywhere, because there are leaders. I mean, we've seen it all over. Like, there are leaders everywhere that come into a power thing, and then they're hungry for more fame.
I see it really as more of like a learning experience of understanding leadership, and how he, how just the whole situation happened, and because of his position, the leader of this church and everything like that, and just how kind of it ensued with the rest of his church and the community that he was building, and that people that were, really following him and the church and the values and things like that. And yeah, it's all about like the values in like a company and like just all that stuff of how that permeated, the situation, and then what happened on the end of it.
And the people that were hurt.
And the people that were hurt. But then there was also, I love the fact too that they share the good things that happened with it as well.
Share that people's lives were changed
so I think
too.
Again, it's not all bad. It's not all negative, but yet, again, like it says, the rise and fall of Mars Hill, like there definitely was this drop off.
I think what I appreciated about it too, and there have been times where they haven't released an episode every week, because they're like in the thick of this right now, doing more investigating and stuff like that, and finding more people are coming forward to share their stories and things like that. And so that's another thing I appreciate. And again, like I said, I think the lens you can view it through, no matter where you're coming from and your perspective, is all about leadership. And it doesn't matter if you are in a place or a company or something like that has 10 people versus 2,000 people or more. Like, this same kind of leadership thing can even happen on a smaller setting. A couple of people we talked to are like, oh, that just happens in big places. And we're like, oh, no.
Or I think what you said earlier about like going, like even as a personal brand, like even thinking about yourself as a personal brand, because we're putting ourselves out there in social media and different ways, like the lessons and the things that you can take from this podcast, I think can really kind of filter into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah. So yeah, that's one we both have listened to.
It's really
one you haven't listened to that is it's called Human Hope by Carlos Whitaker, and I listen to it every week. And the reason why I love it is because, goodness, in this day and time, like, we need a bit of hope, and that's what he's all about. And so he shares stories. He interviews a wide range of people, but he shares a lot of stories. Like, he runs into some random people in the way, because he's a speaker and stuff like that. And so, like, one story is he ran into a guy that was playing the piano in front of a Chick-fil-A at an airport, and stopped and talked to him. And the guy was really good and explained, like, he was had a health need and stuff like that. And then this guy has a big following on, not the piano player, but Carlos has a big following on social media. And like, he then rallies people. I think he's raised like $700,000 for different things. And so he raised enough money to get this guy what he needed for his healthcare needs and things like that. And so he does a lot of things like that. But then he just interviews normal people too, or a great conversation. Yes. A great conversation he had was with a friend, and how they're very on different sides of the political spectrum, but how they've still maintained their friendship. And that was a fascinating listen. So it's some of it's hard. There are hard topics they talk about too, but it's very much like hopeful and things like that, or people will call in and just leave messages of things that are happening in their life and stuff. So that would be another one that I recommend if you need a bit of, I feel like we've talked about it, the other, or well, at least the Mars Hill one's a little bit heavy, but yeah, so that one's a little bit more on the hopeful side. Yeah. So those are some of our favorite things. We were going to say a favorite food we have right now. I can't think of one though.
Gosh.
I have just started making this homemade hummus that I really like a lot, but it makes so much that, and I'm the only one that's eating it, that I'm not sure.
I think
I'm going to maintain it.
In the kind of the sphere of food, we're watching Bake Off as a family right now.
Yes.
And I want to make just bake. I want to, like, they've been just doing some really cool things right now, and I'm like, oh, we should totally do that. Which
our son Jude has been baking every weekend since the show started again. Can you guys make those chocolate eclairs you were talking about making?
Maybe.
There you go. There's when the recipe is 3 pages long and there's that many things, I'm out. That's no thank you. But Jude and Pat are willing to take it on when it is that long.
Well, yeah. So again, that's not
that is a show we love. Yeah. We do love Bake Off as a family.
As a family. Yeah. So
we do love
if you haven't jumped on the Bake Off train yet either, I highly recommend that.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah. So those are some of our favorite things. We'd love to hear from you guys, because especially me, am always looking for new books and podcasts because I need to add one more book to my Goodreads thing. People make fun of me. They're like, how many you have on your to read that you want to read? You're never going to get through those. I'm like, yes.
We didn't get into any like movies or anything, but we really haven't watched much movies. So
no.
If you have any favorite movies, shows for me, or sci-fi fantasy books or anything like that.
For me.
Or post-apocalyptic books or things like that. Please.
Historical fiction for me, please.
Yeah.
Yes. So, that's some of our favorites. We love to hear, like Pat said, from you on some of your favorites. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
See ya.
It's Christmas season, officially, kind of, I think. And that means that you can start thinking of your gift ideas for your loved ones. And we would love for you to check out Laurent Collective for those gifting ideas. There's everything on there, from mugs to t-shirts, to tote bags, to cozy hoodies and sweatshirts, and prints for homes. And we think that you would be able to give a gift that's going to put a smile on someone's face. So head over to laurentcollective.com and check out the gift ideas we have for you. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Laurent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Laurent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.